Mayfield under center, play action fake, looks, fires, end zone, caught, touchdown! It's Jarvis Landry! Mayfield's gonna throw, he throws, end zone, touchdown, Kendall Lamb!
We're opening up the back pages of the playbook today.
Now don't be jealous, Doug. Kendall Lamb just caught a touchdown. Mayfield from under center, play action fake, bootlegs it out to the right, he's throwing down the right sideline, he's got Peoples-Jones wide open, he's gone! 20, 10, 5, touchdown! 75 yards on one play. Mayfield's got the snap, looks right, throws right, end zone, touchdown! Hollywood Higgins! And the Browns go in and score again! From inside the one, he turns, he gives, Chubb falls, he's in, touchdown! And they score again! Mayfield, under center, takes a knee, and that will do it. Final score, the Browns 41, Tennessee 35. The Browns are 9 and...
Wow. How about those Cleveland Browns? And that radio footage was from 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. And I got to tell you, I am very happy for the Cleveland Browns that they were able to go into Tennessee and get the job done like they did on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans. And I think looking at this Cleveland Browns squad, there are so many different people that deserve credit for not only yesterday, but really the way this whole season has gone for this Cleveland Browns squad. And I actually think that they are not getting enough attention right now, because I'll admit, going into Sunday's game against the Tennessee Titans, this game was massive. It was so big for the Cleveland Browns for many reasons. Number one, even though their record was 8-3, and going into this game, even with a loss, odds are they had a good shot to make the playoffs, even though the AFC wildcard picture is very competitive right now. But the Cleveland Browns are playing good football. They're 8-3. They were in 3 going into this game. The problem was their wins didn't really come against the league's best. And I'm not penalizing them for that. You could only play who is on your schedule. But at the same time, let me list off the wins the Cleveland Browns had going into this game, okay? They had a win over Cincinnati, Washington, Dallas, Indy, good win, Cincinnati, Houston, Philly, Jacksonville, and now Tennessee. And this was the first time in a while that I really went into a game with the Cleveland Browns, and I was like, wow, this is a huge game, and these guys could really establish themselves as a legitimate contender and make a statement to the rest of the league that the Cleveland Browns are not only here to stay, not only going anywhere, but they are a threat to make a legitimate run in these playoffs. And the first guy I wanted to make a quick shout out for is Kevin Stefanski. This guy has been phenomenal since he's gotten the head coaching job here in Cleveland. And you could tell when you watch the Cleveland Browns play, they are a well-coached football team. He is scheming guys open. When was the last time we could have ever said that about a coach of the Cleveland Browns, that he is scheming guys open? I can't remember that. And Baker Mayfield said on Sunday that he just woke up feeling dangerous. 4 touchdowns and a half this year, and he is the only quarterback in the NFL to do it so far this season, and he's done it twice. People criticize Baker Mayfield for his attitude and everything he's done so far since he's gotten into the league. And I totally understand the first couple years of Baker's career have not necessarily been perfect. But at the same time, this is a guy at Oklahoma who went from being a former walk-on to a number 1 overall pick in the draft. And he knows what it takes to play at a high level, and he's been through adversity before. So when he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns, I was fascinated to see how exactly this was going to work out, and I understand the winning didn't initially translate within Baker's first couple of years in Cleveland, but at the same time, I think the argument could have just been made he needed a legitimate coach, and that was the organization's fault. Hiring Freddie Kitchens was a big mistake. We all know that. It didn't work out, but at the same time, I don't think anyone was going to be using that as a realistic excuse for why the team was so bad last year, because not only were they poorly coached, their quarterback play was just flat out not good. The Odell Beckham experience didn't work. Their defense wasn't any good. You had the whole Myles Garrett fiasco, and by the time the season ended, the Cleveland Browns just had a headache themselves. And what they did, elevating Andrew Berry to the GM, has been a really nice decision. He then brings in Kevin Stefanski, who has obviously done a great job since taking over as the head coach of this Cleveland Browns squad. And if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, you're feeling right now a way that you haven't felt in a very long time. And before anyone says, oh, Baker only did it for one game, you say the Cleveland Browns are a legitimate contender, it's one game, that shouldn't change your opinion on them or anything. And okay, you could say that all you want. But I'm just sitting here giving the Cleveland Browns the respect they deserve. Because here's the bottom line. Every so often, we'll have teams that in the NFL will win games, will start off with a nice record, but we kind of all know they're really not that good. We kind of saw that with the Chicago Bears earlier in the season. Their record said 5-1, but we all knew deep down that the Chicago Bears were not going to improve and make the playoffs unless they got better quarterback play. And ultimately they didn't, and now they are one of the biggest laughingstocks in the league. I totally understand that. But at the same time, I think when you look at this Cleveland Browns squad, they went into this game hoping to make that statement. They went into this game knowing that people like me that talk about the NFL looked at their schedule and flat out said it's not great. They flat out said, even though the Cleveland Browns are 8-3, and even though Kevin Stefanski deserves a lot of credit, how much credit are we really going to be giving him until they go out there and beat a legitimate team? Because keep in mind, I understand this was a long time ago, and I think you could make the argument that the Cleveland Browns of now are a different team than when they played the Steelers in week number 6 and when they played the Baltimore Ravens in week 1. If you remember, both of those games, they got blown out. But here's the good news for Cleveland. Both of those games were on the road, so now you're going to have, before the season ends, you're going to have a chance to get both of those teams in your home building. And if you could take advantage of that, if you're the Cleveland Browns, then you're going to be building even more momentum going into the playoffs. And let's not forget this. The Baltimore Ravens have a game against the Dallas Cowboys tonight. I have no idea how that's going to work out for them. Look at the AFC playoff picture right now. It is no guarantee at all that the Baltimore Ravens are going to make the playoffs. And that's pretty crazy. And on Monday Night Football next week, the Cleveland Browns are really going to have an opportunity. If you thought that this game against the Titans was a statement, and it was, Baker Mayfield was phenomenal in that first half, throwing 4 touchdowns, then I believe on Monday Night Football against the Ravens, it's going to be an even bigger opportunity for this Cleveland Browns squad because of their ability of making big plays that they were able to show against the Tennessee Titans. And I feel like Kevin Stefanski, where he deserves credit, is that he has kept Baker Mayfield confident. And if you've watched Baker Mayfield throughout his football career, playing in college, playing as a rookie in the NFL, when he set the rookie touchdown record, right? When you watch Baker Mayfield, he was at his best when he was confident, not cocky, but confident, that he believed in himself. And he knew that his coaches believed in him. He knew that Coach Stoops and Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma believed in him. I don't necessarily know if Hugh Jackson and Freddie Kitchens, with how poor of a coaches that both those guys were, I don't really know if they gave off that kind of vibe. So here's where I'm going. Kevin Stefanski knows that even though Baker Mayfield is a former number 1 overall pick, and even though there is a lot of pressure on him in Cleveland, he knows that the best way for the Cleveland Browns to succeed in 2020 in the NFL is by running the football. And throughout the first couple games of the season, that's really how Cleveland succeeded. And it also didn't necessarily help Baker's cause that Cleveland's a lot of times were just playing in just awful weather. The game against the Raiders, they lost that game 16-6. That's a loss you obviously want to have back. The Raiders are a team directly competing with the Cleveland Browns for that AFC wildcard spot. But at the same time, what I'll also say is this. That game was a fluke. You can make that argument. It was in very bad weather. The Browns scored 6 points, and their offense is much better than that. Same thing with the game against Houston. Luckily, somehow, some way, the weather was so bad for both squads that the Texans only put up 7 points, but the Browns defense deserves credit for that. They got the job done over Philadelphia. They barely went into Jacksonville and won, and now they go on the road to Tennessee and just make a statement in the first half. And Kevin Stefanski deserves so much credit. Baker Mayfield deserves so much credit, because here's the other thing. When you look at Baker Mayfield, I totally understand why you make the argument that he really wasn't very good last year. And I understand, I'm not using this as an excuse, but Freddie Kitchens was the coach. And that was Baker's second head coach in his second year in the league. And I was talking about it earlier in the show with Daniel Jones and the Giants. Putting a young quarterback through many different offenses where he may have trouble learning, that is a recipe for a disaster. And I feel like with Cleveland, that could have been what happened with Baker Mayfield. His first year, we all knew Hugh Jackson wasn't getting the job done, and he still balled out. Then in his second year, they bring in a brand new offensive coordinator, and he has to learn a brand new offense. And with Freddie Kitchens running things, we all knew that wasn't going to work out. But then this year, Kevin Stefanski, I think, has established himself as a legitimately good head coach, a real head coach that schemes guys open. And that is something that Cleveland Brown fans really have not been able to say for a really long time. So I don't want to go out here and say the Cleveland Browns are all of a sudden Super Bowl contenders, but they're a big threat, and they have an opportunity with 4 weeks left in the season to really make a statement. Getting Baltimore at home, getting the Steelers at home, going on the road to the New York teams, and going on the road against the Giants. That's now all of a sudden kind of a difficult game, and Cleveland is really going to have to work hard if they want to win. Nick Chubb is one of the best running backs in the league. They're also doing this without Odell Beckham. Also, Denzel Ward, their top corner on defense, didn't even play yesterday. And I feel like if you were going to make one argument about the Cleveland Browns that you want to see improve, it's the defense. I understand Ward wasn't playing yesterday, and they played really well in the first half, but Tennessee was able to march right down the field really throughout the second half whenever they wanted to. And obviously, if you're a Browns fan, you want to see that improve. But I really like what I've been seeing from these guys going forward. And I feel like if you're a Cleveland Brown fan and you're sitting here and your team is 9-3 and has a winning record for the first time in a while, and it looks like they're going to make the playoffs for the first time in a while since 2002, then I don't really know what else to say, man. You Cleveland Brown fans that have been through this team through all of the crazy years with Mike Pettin and Tim Couch and Romeo Crennel. I know he had a winning record, but Todd Haley. There have been so many different guys around this Cleveland Brown organization that have just not been able to get the job done. And Cleveland has done a good job with this team kind of putting those ghosts in the past. And it's funny because in 2020, the craziest and strangest year, the Cleveland Browns are 9-3 and in prime position to make the playoffs.